Well, you don't have much time before you have to leave.
I was like, excuse me? Is that a threat? What up? Story mother freaking time. So some time ago, I told you guys a story about a particular room 22. Someone had left like a thank you card for me, and it had my name on it. And all it said was from room 22. Well, this one isn't necessarily a continuation, but a lot of people did express interest in my grandmother's input in things that pertain to spiritual awareness, spiritual warfare, prayer, staying focused, not necessarily giving in to spiritual wickedness. And so that was inspiration to tell another story similar to room 22. And my grandmother's input was a large part of this one as well. So here we go. So sometime ago, I was on my way to nursing school, to class in nursing school, and I had this old 1999 Jeep Grand Cherokee. It was the love of my life. I don't care what anybody says. I spent so much money on keeping that car alive, and I don't even regret it. I loved it. Loved it. And so that morning, my grandmother calls me and she was like, I want to pray with you. That wasn't necessarily uncommon for my grandmother, but if you pay attention to my grandmother's tone, you could very quickly pick up on the fact that she didn't have a positive feeling about the direction that the day was going to go in, and therefore she wants to pray, try to get ahead of it. I was like, all right, Granny, well, I'm already pretty late, so we're gonna have to pray on the move. She's praying, I'm getting dressed, and honestly, I'm gonna just be dead honest with y'all, I was not paying 110% attention to the prayer. I just kept her, you know, in between my shoulder and my ear. And I continued getting dressed. And so I hopped in the car, she ended the prayer, I said my later love yous, later love you. That's what that was. And I noticed that I didn't have very much gas. Y'all, I was already running late. If you haven't learned anything about me by at this point in listening to my stories, it needed to have been that I am never on time to anything. Anyways, so I was like, I can't stop for gas. It's just we gonna have to chug along with this little bit of gas that we got left, and when class is over, I'll go get gas, but we don't have the time to stop. I'm already gonna be there maybe just in the nick of time. If I stop off, I'm definitely gonna be late. You know how when you're driving to class, you know a bunch of shortcuts. You know a series of shortcuts. And I decided at this point in time in the morning there was going to be traffic on the freeway. I'm going to take the back way. I never had any issues with the back way, okay? Never did. There's a back street that you go. It'll help you avoid the traffic. It's one of those streets that you don't tell too many people about, because then it won't be the back way anymore. Then you might as well just stay on the freeway because it's going to pack up with traffic too. And so there's a point in this back way where you have to chug along up a hill, and then it starts to go back down and even out. Yeah, so on that hill is when my truck decided you should have stopped off to get gas, baby girl. And so it does this thing where it makes like a high-pitched noise, and then sort of like a phew, like a give up noise, and then it just turns off. That's it. And then of course all of the lights start blinking on the dash, and then they stop blinking, and then it's just the gas light. Like, why didn't you get gas? That's that. And so I'm like, great. Lesson here, stop off and get the gas, because if your truck shuts down, you're gonna be late anyways, okay? So I'm annoyed, and I call everybody that I think can help me. I call my brother. My brother's also in school. He is in class, and he's like,
you gonna have to wait until I'm done, because I was late here too.
Great. I called my dad, who was at work, and said,
listen, I can't run away and help you right now, but you know, when I take my first break, I can come drop off some gas for you.
And I was like, are you serious? So I called my mom. The reason why I didn't want to call my mom is because I knew my mom was going to give me an earful.
Why you didn't stop to get the gas in the first place, Ashley? Oh, you don't learn, you don't listen.
So yeah, that's what I dealt with when I called my mother. And so she was like,
I'm just gonna have to call AAA because I'm at work.
and I was like, yes, AAA is great. And so she informed me AAA is only great if they come within the amount of time that they say they're gonna come. They don't always do that. Well, somebody's coming. So she calls AAA, she gives me an update in ETA. They say they'd be there in 30 minutes. What else am I gonna do? I'm gonna just wait. I gotta wait 30 minutes in my car. And I didn't want to leave the car because I don't know if y'all caught on to the fact that I am in love with this car, this 1999 Jeep Grand Cherokee, okay? That already has several other issues outside of me not putting the gas in there. So it was the springtime and it was starting to warm up on the East Coast, so I could have gotten out the car and just sort of, chilled on the side of the street or something. I didn't want to stay in the car. So I got out the car and there were this was like a strip, like a street. It wasn't like a super strange street. Like I said, I'm familiar with this street, but there aren't a whole lot of houses. So there's one house that looks really, really sad. Like, if anybody lives there, they're old, okay? And then there's maybe a mile or two up the street, one more house, and then you'll probably see one more house before you get out of this little back street and back onto the main road. So I'm hovering outside, I keep looking at my phone. I text one of my friends and ask her if the professor, who is familiar with me being late, said anything about me not being there. And she said,
no, she hasn't said anything yet, but if you want, I can tell her that you're having car issues.
I said, yes, absolutely, I love that. And that helped me calm down exponentially, And so I'm waiting outside and I remembered that I had some water back in the car, so I'm about to head back into the car and I see this old lady. She looks a little disheveled and she had a cup of coffee, I guess a cup of a hot drink in her hand because I saw smoke coming out of it. And she comes outside and she looks at me and she says,
you can't park in front of my house.
I was like, well, I didn't park here. My car shut down and I just sort of pulled over to as far as it would allow me to pull over. And she was like,
well, you don't have much time before you have to leave.
I was like, excuse me? Is that a threat? She said,
no, you don't have much time.
And then she turns around and walks back in the house. I was like, biscuit eating bulldog, I don't know who she thinks she's talking to. So I was like, okay, let me check the ETA of this AAA. We got at least another 15 to 18 minutes. She gonna come back out here. She's gonna come back out here and say something else to me. And I'm gonna lose my shiitake mushrooms. So maybe about 7 or 8 minutes go by and I'm just waiting for her to roll back out. And I look up and I see the window, the curtains in the window move. And I'm like, she about to come out. I know she is. I know she's sitting in that window watching me. I know she is. She's about to come out. Surprise, surprise, here she comes with her little cup. She's like,
do you have an ETA? Do you have a time in which you will be able to leave from in front of this home? It's very important.
At this point, I'm not really sure what to make of the feeling that I'm getting from this individual. So I'm about to say, ma'am, AAA is on their way. This is bordering on harassment. I did not choose to stop off here. I look down because my phone starts to ring as I was checking the ETA. I look down, it's my grandmother calling me, and I look up, homegirl, gone. I don't even see her walking back in the house. She's just gone. Nothing. I answered the phone to complain to my grandmother. My grandmother immediately says, where are you? My car shut down. Ashley, I told you to be careful. I didn't even finish telling you what happened. The car. Get back in the car. She gives me a psalm to read and she was like, don't get back out the car. So I read the psalm. I sat in the car, just a solid maybe 2 minutes go by, and the AAA guy truck shows up, and he's talking to me, and he's just making small talk, and he puts the gas in my car, and he's like,
You really gotta be careful out here. You know, make sure that you keep some gas in your car.
and I was like, yeah, this lady was harassing me about parking in front of her house.
What lady? What are you talking about? Nobody lives here.
Yes, they do. Yes, they do. Someone lives here.
Man, I have been working for AAA for years. Years. I have never. We are well aware of what we're surrounded by, what we have to do, what we have to take care of. No one's lived in this home for years.
Well, maybe somebody moved in, and he looks around at the clearly abandoned home.
Okay. Yeah. Just be careful. I gave you just enough gas to make it to the next gas station up the street. That's all I'm legally allowed to give you. It's per protocol.
He asked for my ID, yada yada yada, daga daga dada. I call my grandmother back as I'm driving up to the next gas station, and she asked me if I'm okay. I said yes, I'm okay. She said, you need to be careful, Ashley. I said okay. So, I definitely have my fair share of experiences, but what I will tell you guys is that actual story was the inspiration to the way Epstein Street started. A lot of my fictional stories, I get inspiration from like real life experiences. Some of them, not so much. Some of them is really just my imagination being disrespectful and just sort of running off on a rampant and doing its own thing. The way Epstein Street starts is she's late for class and her friend convinces her to take a street that everyone always says is, you know, spooky, haunted, Epstein Street. And me, in this case, there was no history or story of this street being haunted, but it was a back way, and I was late. And so in order for me to create a bigger, more embellished story, I made that street haunted. And that's where that connection came from. So make sure that you tune in to the next episode of Epstein Street, and I will update you on the Room 22 story on my next YouTube episode. Leave me some comments. Let me know what it is you want me to turn into a fictional story. Tell me about your experiences. I'd be more than happy to bring it to life and narrate it. Thanks for joining. Check out my literary work, subscribe, like. Have a good one.